Welcome back to another episode of Mind Your Body and Soul, the Healthy Podcast, your number one podcast for all things health. I am Joseph Ward. I'm coupled with Mr.
Mathias Sweet.
And this lovely young lady is back with us once again.
Hello,
Miss Alana Steaple, aka Dr. Staples. That's her street name. She earned her name in the streets as Dr. Staples, and that's a double entendre. So you better recognize, okay? Man, how y'all doing today? Like, it's a good Thursday. How y'all doing today?
We good, making it through.
Yeah. Hey, you know, this is one of them weeks. Like, this is a week. Like Wednesday, I think yesterday when I went home, I just like crashed.
Well, you can't do as bad as I did because I thought yesterday was Monday. Because it felt like a Monday.
Hey, look at here. I swear, like, it's funny. COVID happened and we got busier.
Yeah.
I know.
Right?
Like the telehealth, everything is booming. So it's just like it to me, I think COVID gave everybody a better avenue to get health care. And it just made it more accessible for everybody else. So I mean, it's good. We booming, we busy. So, I mean, I'd rather be busy than bored.
Right. And I'd rather be busy than unemployed.
You're right.
You know?
That's an excellent point, Joe.
I need my coins. I like to eat.
I think we all do. Yeah.
I like to eat. It's hot outside. You know, when I sweat, I think I'm going to lose weight, and I don't need to do that. So I need to eat.
I don't know. I need to lose weight, but, you know, it's coming.
Send it over here.
You can have all of it. If I could take all of it and give it to you, I'll do it. I want to be skinny one day. Just one day. Just for one day. Just to see what it feels like.
You know, it's really interesting thinking about this whole situation with COVID, is that it really is calling into place, especially in the minority population, how healthy we really need to be. Because we see that the minority communities are being affected, and they're being affected with the standard high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, obesity, morbid obesity. And what it's doing is that it really is holding a mirror up to us, up to ourselves. And we see our loved ones and our friends going in but not coming out, and they will say, not only were they a minority, but they had uncontrolled blood pressure, uncontrolled blood sugar. And so this really, in some ways, it's almost like a mixed blessing.
Yes.
Or a backdoor blessing that COVID came about, because now the spotlight is on your health.
Yes.
Because if you do become positive and you have those comorbidities,
It's gonna be it's gonna couple the I guess you could say the severity of your health.
That's right. That's right. And also one more point is that it is also calling into play the youth's health as well. Remember, a few years ago we were just saying that this generation, that millennial generation, may or may not live as long as their parents.
Right.
So now we see that the virus is affecting children, and it's also coming into play looking at the youth's health as well.
Yeah. So
that in.
And what's interesting, and we are going to get into this in this conversation, because today's conversation is centered around HIV. We want to do a show specifically on HIV. We're going to come back with the show specifically on PEP and PrEP. And we're also going to come back with the show specifically on STDs. But we want to focus on HIV AIDS today in this particular podcast. And Ms. Steaple, you have what's difficult is you are dealing with COVID and HIV.
That's correct.
Right.
That's correct.
And we already know, well, we know how HIV plays on a person's immune system. So does COVID play on the person's immune system.
That's correct.
So we want to make sure that we dedicate today into breaking down HIV as far as it needs to be broken down. So if you do have questions, then that's good. But most of your questions we're going to try to answer debunk some of these myths about HIV and
Right.
AIDS, and just put the real light on the table, you know?
That's right. Because still in the 21st century, this disease came into play in 1980, 81, and there are still myths and still a lot of misinformation that is going around. No matter how far we have come with the HIV virus, there is still myths that are circulating out there, and so hopefully we can put a lot of that misinformation to rest.
So let's start with that. So, all right, Mathias, I want to start with you.
Oh Lord.
What's one myth or like the wildest myth so far that you've heard about HIV?
The wildest myth. I don't even know if it's the wildest myth, but it's like the most common. Like you can just get it from touching or kissing. And it's like those are some of the myths that is like you can't just get HIV from being around a person who has HIV. You can't get HIV from eating off of a plate that somebody else ate off of that had HIV that you washed. So the myth you hear with people saying, "Oh, you can spread it, and you got to get your own set of cups, your own set of utensils, or we just give you all paper plates." That's a myth there because you can't spread HIV like that. It's very hard to spread it through saliva. I mean, you have to have a lot of
you got it.
with blood mixed in it in order for you to contract HIV. So that's one myth that I think people are very scared of. You can still, if you have HIV, you can still give your loved ones a kiss on the cheek. If you have grandkids and you have HIV, you can still be around and play with your grandkids. You're not going to give them HIV. I think the touching part is probably the biggest myth that I've heard.
Okay. What about you, Ms. Steaple? What's one of the far out myths or just myth period that you've heard about HIV AIDS?
I think one of the most far out is I heard it from a young gentleman that said that if you participate in anal sex without a condom and after the sexual intercourse, that you can douche. You can actually stick the probe through your anus and rectum, douche with vinegar water, and that will prevent you from getting HIV. Total.
Yeah. No, that's a no.
That's a big no for men and women.
Right.
Like
the one
far out.
The one that stands out to me is when they say this is the myth that they use for testing to see if the person you're about to have sex with has HIV. So, I think Mathias knows what I'm about to say. So you dig in your ear. Now, first of all, you got to not wash your ears. So you can have some wax buildup, right? So don't wash your ears, right? So you have the wax buildup in your ear. You dig in your ear, you get the earwax. Now, and this is for somebody about to have sex with a female. So you take the earwax on your finger and you stick it inside the vagina. Now, this is vagina specific now. And if the person jumps, they have HIV. If they don't jump, then you good. And see, it's so many things wrong with that. First of all, like we need to break down basic anatomy. We're gonna do that, but it's like I can jump and still have something. Or what if I don't jump and have all the other STDs that are available? And see, listen to the myths that we've said.
That's right.
So, and as educators, all three of us, these myths have our minds spinning like, wow, people really believe this. But in reality, for those who are watching, who may not be in the world of education, an authority figure. I want to put this in your mind. Think about the one person in your life who, when they tell you something, you could pretty much take that to the bank. Like, that person won't lie to you. That person has taught you a lot. So this person is seen as an authority figure. But this person may not be an expert, or that person might not be knowledgeable about HIV/AIDS or even safe sex. And this person can teach this myth or teach this thing that's not true. And you, being a person who looks up to this person or admires this person for specific information, will take this information as truth and use it. And a lot of times I want people to look at it like that, because you might come across somebody whose information may be off, and you looking at them like they just backwoods crazy, and it's not. They were miseducated.
That's right. That's right. And we're not talking about Dr. Google either.
Right. Right.
Dr. Google.
What school did Dr. Google go to? Like, he graduated from Houghton Street University or something. I don't know.
You're right. But you know, though, a lot of people do get their health information from Google.
Yeah.
And Google can be misinterpreting at times, because a lot of things that you think you might have, you might not have. It could be something totally else, because a lot of, like, for instance, with STDs and HIV, their same symptoms can be the same for almost each and every single one. So a lot of people get the signs and symptoms mixed up, and it might not even be that severe of what you think you have.
Right.
But you know, as people, our mind go to the deep end first, to the worst that it could possibly be, until it is really right here on line 1 instead of a 10.
Straight up.
We just got to get rid of going to Dr. Google and actually trusting back our providers.
That's right.
Getting back into seeing healthcare providers and making sure that we actually routinely go. We might be good. And I mean, I'm bad at this too. I can say for myself, I start out good, get the provider, and you start going. And then as soon as you start feeling better, it's like, I don't need to go. I'm good. So we need to keep working through that as a culture and as a community to actually start going. How can I tell you to go to the doctor, but I won't go?
Right.
And so we got to look at ourselves when we telling people to do things. That's just like me and Joe can't tell nobody you can't get an HIV test if we don't get an HIV test.
And we test ourselves
frequently.
Yeah. So let's get into the crux of this conversation, this situation. Let's get into what HIV is. So I'm gonna do my screen sharing, my little fancy screen sharing.
All right.
And we're going to get into, this is our standard HIV one-on-one PowerPoint that we would usually use when we're doing classes. So let's start from the beginning. And both of you just feel free to jump in at any time. So, and I was Miss Steaple.
Yes.
1981.
1981. Remember it so well.
Right. So 1981. Let's expand on this. I want you to expand on this because it started off as GRID and then it became HIV. What is GRID and how did it become HIV?
Well, actually, you know, it started off as this mysterious illness that was pretty much striking. It started off as males, but then they figured out it was gay males. And then one of the predominant diseases that came out from this unknown disease was a cancer. And so they would call it the gay man's cancer. And more research was done. So from 81 to about 84, 84 was really between 81 and 84. That's when they really started doing more research, kind of isolating, tracing it back all the way to, believe it or not, monkeys in
the vervet monkeys.
You know, people eating bush meat because the monkeys were part of the bush in Africa. They came up with the name human immunodeficiency virus. And so it went from 1981, the gay man's cancer, to about 83, 84, HIV.
Okay. Mathias, you want to expound on that?
She pretty much said it all, how it really came about, and just, you know, saying how it affected everybody. Just thought it affected one group of person, one exact type of population. But as you can see, as it evolved, more and more people actually came about to having it. So now, when it was considered to be just in the LGBTQ population, now it's going across all spectrums. It could be black, white, Hispanic, multiracial. It could be gay, straight, heterosexual, bisexual, pansexual, asexual. So it don't affect anybody. And don't discriminate. It could be young, old, middle-aged, teenager.
you know, look at the name of the program that we work for.
Ryan White.
Ryan White.
He was a young boy when he became infected with HIV, and that was through
blood transfusion.
Blood transfusion, right? Blood products, because he was a hemophiliac. So that's exactly right. And so, I think we can also see the fact that the coronavirus and the HIV virus, they're
similar. They're
brother
cousins.
and sister.
Cousins. Yeah. So you know what's also interesting information that I found out, you know, I nerd out about HIV, especially the virology and all of that. But 1981, around that time, there was a drug called poppers. And it was an inhalant, and they called it poppers because it came, I think it was like this plastic like tube or something, and they would pop it and inhale it. And when they inhaled, it would relax their anus. And it made anal sex easier. And so a lot of people contributed poppers to the spread of HIV. But all poppers did was help to relax the anus. Now, it may have dehydrated the body. And so, you know, when the body's dehydrated, that makes the mucosal membrane more susceptible to being broken. And that opens people up to transmission. And we will get deeper into that. But we do want to give some history. So around 1981, that's when it was first recognized. So specifically in Manhattan, New York, and San Francisco, California.
That's right. That's right.
So now within our area, we have, well, every area that people do HIV work or HIV prevention, they have target populations. Now these on our screen aren't all of our target populations, and but they are some of our main target populations: MSM, men who have sex with men, IDU injection drug users. Now, we don't have a large injection drug user population here in Tallahassee, Florida, but other areas around the country, you may have a large or even a sizable IDU population.
And I think that's increasing. Excuse me, Joe, but I think that's increasing. I think that's increasing the more states that came on board with the medical cannabis.
Right.
Because, you know, people felt that, oh, well, that was a gateway drug, when the medical piece. I really believe in my heart of hearts it is not a gateway, but because of that cannabis that is out there, people are feeling like it's opening doors to other avenues, such as injection drug use.
Right. And then, you know, we have commercial sex workers. We do have sex workers here in Tallahassee, but elder, we saw a spike in elder populations. But I know, and most people think because it is the numbers do show, but most people look at like 16 to 24, and they're always looking at 16 to 24 when it comes to all sexually transmitted diseases. But the main thing we want people to understand is you are not too young or too old to have HIV to contract it. So,
as a matter of fact, Joe, the stats for those 50 and older as of 2017, 45.2% of individuals who have been diagnosed with HIV are over the age of 50.
Right. Could you read that one more time?
45 as of 2017, 45.2% of individuals who have been diagnosed with HIV is aged 50 years and older. 45.2%.
That's a big percent.
Right. So that right there hammers home what we're talking about. HIV doesn't discriminate.
No.
It doesn't care who you are, doesn't care how cool you think you are, doesn't care who your mama is, doesn't care who your daddy is, don't care what kind of car you drive, how many degrees you have, what kind of clothes you buy. HIV doesn't care about any of that. All HIV cares about is staying alive in your system. And that brings us to what HIV is and how it works into the body. So Mathias, kind of lead us on this. Like, what is HIV?
HIV is basically a virus that infects your blood cells. It comes in and attacks your helper T cells, which fight off infections, as well as, you know what I'm saying? And basically, when the HIV virus gets into the system, it gets in there and starts fighting off. Take it like you got a cut. Am I right, Ms. Steaple? And then when you get that cut and your body's trying to heal itself and you see the little pussy part coming up on it, that's your T cells that are actually trying to take over and fight and actually, you know what I'm saying, heal your cut and heal from the inside out. But when you have HIV, that's different because the virus is attacking those cells and is replicating. Right. And it's making the actual virus itself. So now it's eating up your T cells, which is fighting off. So now you won't have any more T cells to fight that infection. Mm-hmm. So if you think of it as like a cut or like a bump, and you get that little pus on there, that pus and the little actual particles that are inside is trying to heal from the inside. Your natural body immune system is actually trying to fight off the infection. But before it can fight off, the actual virus itself is actually attacking your immune system and eating them up. So now they can't fight to protect you anymore.
Right.
That's right. That's right. I mean, the reason why I like this slide, Joe and Mathias, is because it is how the life cycle of HIV can be rather complex, but it really complements what Mathias was saying about the fact that, you know, the helper T cells, they love the helper T cells.
They do. Mm-hmm. They do.
They go. They are the ones who, you know, if you have a weak link, they're gonna look at the helper T cell.
Yes, they're gonna find it.
And so they're the weak link. But I will say what it says, once an individual is infected with HIV, the virus is never dormant in their system. Right. To add a little bit to that is that, and this is a whole different topic, but there are latent reservoirs that reside in the central nervous system, in the lymphoid tissue, in the gut. They are dormant. They just kind of sit there until something wakes them up. So the virus, there are those that are the viral particles are constantly working, and then there are those that are just sitting by and waiting.
Right. And I also want people to understand that the T cells are also called CD4 T cells.
That's right. CD4.
And HIV is literally attracted to CD4. Yeah. And think about the CD4 as the halo of the cell. Okay. And so the white blood cell just riding through the bloodstream, with a big neon sign say, "Hey, pick me, pick me." Pick me. Mm-hmm. And HIV is in your body. And we go to the next slide. Like, HIV is in your body looking for these cells because it's a bloodborne pathogen, meaning that it needs the cells within the blood products to stay alive, and it needs those cells. All viruses work off of cell replication, all viruses. Mm-hmm. And the CD4, those white cells, provide HIV the house that it needs to replicate. And one of my favorite parts is it uses a process called reverse transcriptase. Mm-hmm. That's right.
That's right. So reverse transcription.
It's a big word, but it's not a big concept. So so you have the healthy white blood cell, you have the HIV cell. The HIV cell needs to stay alive, just like in the PowerPoint. It will attach itself to the white blood cell. That's right. And it would basically bury itself into the cell.
Right.
Once it gets into the cell, remember it says reverse transcript. Don't worry about the taste part. Don't worry about the taste. Just reverse transcript. Think about what a transcript is. Something that's written out, a code that's written out. So it reverses the code of the virus. And it's now, and when it bloods out, that cell, because its code has been reversed, it's now a HIV cell or white blood cell that's infected with HIV.
See, the thing is, and just to expound on that, Joe, the fact is that, you know, there are receptors on the CD4 cell that the HIV virus, because remember, a virus is a thief.
Yes.
It can do anything on its own. So it's going to hijack a healthy cell in order to make more of itself.
Right.
So like you were saying with the reverse transcriptase, that is what we call a RNA virus.
Right.
In order to replicate and make more of itself, that RNA has to
needs
be
DNA.
a DNA.
Right.
That DNA,
they go hand in hand.
DNA goes into that healthy cell. It says, hey, give me some of that healthy, let me get in there, that healthy DNA.
Right.
And it boots out part of the healthy DNA and puts itself in.
Yep.
Right.
And it sits there like it's at home, and it says,
chilling.
I need to make more of me. Hey, keep going, keep going.
It has a hit it and quit it mentality. That's why I like this one of the classes said to get people to really remember, it has a hit it and quit it mentality.
That's exactly
right.
And to kind of drive it home a bit more, I use a Marvel movie analogy. So you have Spider-Man and you have Venom.
Okay.
Remember the black substance of Venom is nothing without a host.
Correct.
That's exactly right.
So once that gets onto Spider-Man and it uses the cell and it replicates itself through that, that's when Venom becomes Venom. But when that substance doesn't have a host, it's nothing. And outside of the body, HIV is a punk. It can only last like 3 hours outside the body. But inside the body, it's a juggernaut.
That's right. That's right.
So,
it's tough.
It's
a thief.
Right. And so that's basically how HIV, what happens inside the body, the process that it has for it to stay alive in your body. So
now you know what, I really like this slide. I like the slide that the fact that HIV infection progresses slowly and continuously. And there are 4 stages of HIV infection. The first one is infection. Now, you know what? A lot of people don't seem to realize that when the initial infection has signs and symptoms of that of the flu, achiness, the sore throat, the hard to swallow, the lymph nodes. Sometimes they'll get the nausea and vomiting, muscle aches, but it resembles the flu. That's why when the flu months come along, it's very hard to distinguish. But you know in your head what your actions, were. So I really like this slide, because after the initial infection or the acute infection, individuals will become asymptomatic. They'll say, I feel better.
Now, I want Mathias to expound on this because we see it a lot when we're in these classrooms. So Mathias, what is asymptomatic? Like, break that down for us. What asymptomatic is?
Asymptomatic is where you don't have any signs, no symptoms, no nothing. You could be walking around here like you feel great. Your muscles don't hurt. You feel like you're your best self, but you can still have like HIV, or you can still have some STDs. And a lot of people don't understand the importance of going to get tested and going to your doctor. This is where most people find out their HIV status or their STD status is when they go to the doctor and get tested, because a lot of the STDs present themselves as asymptomatic. Yes. A lot of times people are taking these vitamins, they're multivitamins, they're drinking their milk. Everybody right now is on a health kick.
That's right.
I even tried to be on a health kick. I tried the keto thing. We praying on that.
Salads. We eat salads now.
But you got to look at everybody is on that health kick right now. So you're feeling good. You're working out. You're doing your part. But the other part is you still got that little section over here that you're not protecting yourself 100% when you're having sex. And it's not saying that when you're having sex, you're always in the fault, but you never really know what your partner is doing. And it's not saying everybody is doing something wrong, but you still want that insurance or showance, like most people say,
assurance
to know that you are good. You know
right.
what I'm saying? So even though you might not have signs and symptoms, we all know we're out there having sex. We're out there having unprotected sex. So as a mature adult or someone who's engaging in sexual activity, we need to take the responsibility to actually go and get tested, because we all know, and we're all educated on it, that some of these STDs, and sometimes even when you're sick, you have no signs and symptoms. For instance, if you take COVID, it's a lot of people now that are just going to get a test and are coming up positive,
right,
and they don't have the signs and symptoms.
right.
And so signs and symptoms only can suggest sometimes when you're sick, but you could be really sick and still don't have those signs and symptoms.
So how often should people get tested?
Depending on your sexual activity and your engagement and your encounters, but we really tell everybody that they should really start getting tested before you actually engage in unprotected sex. Or if you know you're really in a relationship with somebody, let's get tested together. Let's keep getting tested. We suggest every 3 to 6 months that you get tested. Now, if you're in a monogamous relationship and y'all both are getting tested frequently, and y'all start with at least for the first year, at least doing 3 to 6 months, every 3 to 6 months, and y'all still in the same monogamous relationship, then we can suggest going to once a year, just depending on your sexual activity and your habits. So I really say, even if you get into that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road, you still want to get tested every 3 to 6 months.
That's right.
Yeah. Nobody's too in love to not get tested.
Right.
That's right.
I mean, and look, okay.
That's true.
To be honest, like real life, like because we're not trying to waste nobody's time, sugarcoat anything. We're not saying that your particular partner may be stepping out on you, but trust, all three of us have seen this with our own 6 eyes, that monogamy doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. And so like he's talking about a monogamous relationship. So making sure that both of you all are the same type of monogamous.
Right.
Because you could have one idea of, oh, I'm monogamous, but your partner not.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
And we don't want people around here assuming their status. Oh yeah, and gentlemen, look, you stop. Look, it's 2020. We will no longer be getting tested through our partners. So you like, my girl straight, or my dude straight, or my partner straight. No, that doesn't mean you are straight. Because once again, you could be asymptomatic.
That's right. Very good point, Joe. Excellent.
That don't mean, because 9 times out of 10, most of those people who are getting tested by the girlfriend also got a girlfriend on the side. So that girl really ain't checked out yet. But the main one that you're sleeping with is the one that you checked out with. But that doesn't mean it still has an incubation period.
That's right.
A lot of people don't understand that infection stage takes, what you say, Ms. Steaple?
It's like almost like 7 to 10 days. You're just kind of like, you start, some people, believe it or not, some people are exceptionally sensitive, and they start feeling kind of funny after the first 3 days, after like the 3rd day after unprotected sexual intercourse.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I know we're all individual, but there's still that fine line that goes through that we pretty much all play a part in, or it looks like, from me to you, you to them, it's the characteristics are the same. And so if you talk to your provider and you say, oh, my throat was sore, or I have a headache, I feel achy, and it's not cold and flu season, I really hope your provider does an HIV test on you. And if the provider does not bring it up, then you bring it up. You ask for the test. You say, you know what? I heard it on Neighborhood Medical's podcast that, an acute infection kind of resembles the flu, and I feel really achy. I feel like I have a sore throat, fever. Can you give me an HIV test?
Ms. Steaple, real quick, could you just, because everybody might not know, break down what an acute infection is, please.
An acute infection is those signs of like a flu, fever, chills, muscle aches, a sore throat, feeling just overall like you're coming down with the worst flu possible. That is what an acute infection. You know why? Yeah, we're talking about it earlier, because the body is trying to mount up defenses against this foreigner. And so because of that, the body will raise its temperature. Okay, those muscle aches, those chills, trying to warm it up, trying to ward off that infection from this foreign virus. That is what an acute infection is.
Okay.
Yeah, Ms. Steaple, you know, you just described what we were talking about earlier, how almost 9 times out of 10, most infections could have the same type of symptoms.
That's right.
Because what you just described to me sounds like what we always ask everybody. Do you have any fever, chills, cold?
That's right.
Throat?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's the COVID screening right there.
Right. That's his cousin.
And so
but guess what?
It could be anything.
But guess what, Mathias? If you come to neighborhood medical center, getting an HIV test, getting a syphilis test,
it's free.
That is automatic. That's automatically part of
you. Look, you come to neighborhood medical center and you ask for a free rapid HIV test. You ask for a free rapid syphilis test. Now, also, speaking of that, I want to say this too. A tip for people who want to get tested. Because a lot of times people will come in and they want to get screened for everything. And they'll just say, I need to get tested. I need to get tested. Start saying, I need a full panel blood draw, because there's different types of tests. We can do a finger prick, which is a rapid test. You get your results 15 minutes or less. Or there's the blood draw, where they will draw your blood, and that could take days for your blood to come back. And the blood draw is like the most accurate, like the 4th, 5th generation test. And a lot of times people need blood draws. So if you're in that position, whatever clinic you're going in, make sure you communicate to them that you need a full panel STD test checking for everything. And because when you go into these health facilities, you have to make sure you communicate effectively what you want and don't leave anything up to interpretation. Like
you gotta
me,
be your own advocate. You gotta be your own advocate.
That's right. That's a very good point.
Now,
very good point.
Testers and any tester that we train, they know to go above and beyond and make sure we're asking the right questions and building the right rapport so we can be on the same page communication wise. But if that rapport isn't built, it's critical that you advocate for yourself. But the key tip again, make sure you ask for a full panel STD test. You want them to test for all STDs and HIV. Now,
is that right, Ms. Steaple, including in a pap smear? They're not automatically going to do, some clinics don't automatically do STD panels when they do a pap smear. And the girls go in, the young ladies and women go into a pap smear thinking they got checked for all STDs and they good, and they really not.
That is not true. You really need to, like Joe was saying, communicate to your provider, because remember, you're not the only patient that provider is seeing. So, and we're human too. So sometimes you just have to say, hey, please make sure that I'm tested. I get that full STD panel, because I really want to make sure that everything is okay. And sometimes, we'll go, oh, okay, you know what, that's true. But like I said, at neighborhood, when you have your blood drawn, we include the initial blood work, we include that STD, well, the HIV and the RPR.
Right. Now, before we move forward, I want to clear some things up, and both of you can jump in on this.
Okay.
What's the difference between HIV and AIDS?
Well,
Mathias?
the difference is the number of T cell count, the number of T cells you have in your body, which classifies you as AIDS. you have to have below 200 T cells in order for you to be classified as AIDS. AIDS is a classification of HIV. It does not mean most people in the community say, I need an AIDS test.
You're not
We're
gonna
not
get that.
testing for AIDS, we're testing for HIV. And that's one of the other myths that's in the community is this person got AIDS. No, the person has HIV. AIDS is just another step in HIV when your T cell count gets below 200.
That's
or,
right.
Ms. Steeple, is it the percentage is under 13?
It's 13 and under, actually.
So when the percentage gets that low, then you're classified as AIDS. But the best part about it is you will still have that classification as AIDS once you reach that classification, but your T cell count can go up and you can get back to a healthy, normal life of living with HIV, but you will always be classified as AIDS with that diagnosis because your T cell count drops below 13% or it was under 200 T cell count.
Right.
So that means you had to have less than 200 of your fighter cells left in your body.
Right. And looking at the PowerPoint, the first bullet point and the third bullet point is also another definition of what AIDS is. As Mathias said, AIDS is a classification of the progression of HIV in your body when there's no treatment. So let's say you have a positive HIV diagnosis and the presence of one or more opportunistic infection. And real quick, an opportunistic infection is any infection that was in your body that would normally be dormant because your immune system is healthy enough to fight it off and keep it dormant. But because your immune system is compromised, these infections took the opportunity to manifest themselves in your body because there's no resistance. So once again, so if you have a positive HIV test and the presence of one or more opportunistic infection, that's the other definition or another definition of what somebody would classify or the definitions you have to meet to be classified as having AIDS, along with the T cell count of below 200 per microliter. So those are like two working definitions.
Excuse me, Joe, but an example of the opportunistic infection is shingles.
Yes. And actually right here's some opportunistic infections right here. And you, because Ms. Steaple, earlier you mentioned the cancer when we were talking about the early stages of when HIV came out. And so was Kaposi sarcoma what you were thinking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because in the early 80s, that was one way. If I'm a little bit older, but if y'all remember the movie Philadelphia with Tom and Denzel Washington, one of the ways that they recognized that he was infected was that he had that little blemish, which is the Kaposi, that little purplish blemish, and they end up the further that your HIV is advanced, they pop up and it's so it's tough. It's tough.
Right. And looking at this particular slide, they see in the top left-hand corner the AIDS-related herpes. Remember, these things are happening because everybody in this slide, their immune system is severely compromised and working at a low level.
That's right.
This oral thrush is definitely one of the major signs of somebody who's advancing in AIDS.
Oh yeah,
we see that a lot. Like that's how we diagnose a lot of people by not even coming into the clinic and they seeing like the AIDS related herpes rash, or they have other complications, or the thrush. The thrush is a real big like number one sign that we see a lot of, that we see people be like, oh, something's not right. Let's test for HIV.
That's right. Or I have trouble swallowing.
Right.
It doesn't feel right. I have trouble swallowing. And thrush actually starts from the tip of the tongue and it can go all the way down, believe it or not.
Right. So Ms. Steaple, break down wasting syndrome, please.
Oh my goodness. Wasting syndrome, pretty much, it's almost like you want to eat and all the nutrients that you think you're getting, they're pretty much pretty much being wasted. It's almost like the nutrients in your gut, they're not being distributed to the appropriate places in your body. And because the nutrients aren't being distributed, because the gut, believe it or not, is the first place that the HIV virus, do you know, strikes. And it destroys the guts, the healthy bacteria in the gut. So if you're eating, taking it down, the nutrients aren't being distributed out. Therefore, you'll have the muscle wasting, you will have the lack of energy, you'll have the immediate weight loss, because the body isn't getting the nutrients that it needs.
And your immune system is in your gut as well.
It is. It is. So, the gut microbiome is, believe it or not, like I said, it is the first place that that the bacteria destroy, that virus destroys.
Right. What was I just about to ask? It was just right on the tip of my tongue. I don't know. I remember. I'll think about it later.
And if anyone wants to do a research study on the gut microbiome.
Oh yeah, I remember now. So is that why a lot of people can have GI issues when going into the AIDS state?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the diarrhea, I just don't feel well, because that healthy microbiome has been destroyed. And when it, believe it or not, when it's destroyed, guess what? There's nothing to protect the system from the virus entering the bloodstream, going into the lymphoid tissue. That's the next area that is affected after the gut's microbiome is destroyed. It's the lymph tissue.
Right.
That's why you get those big lymph nodes.
Okay. Now I want to go back before we go forward to transmission methods.
Okay.
Because this is one that I always thought this part was important. The window period. Mathias, I'm throwing this one back at you.
Okay.
What's this window period? Because, we talk about it a lot, especially with these students. What's this window period when it comes to HIV?
It's basically, like Ms. Steaple said, nowadays we have better tests that are out now that can tell us a little bit more frequently or a little bit earlier than what we used to know. But back in the day, it was a 3-month window period where the body has a chance to produce the HIV cells, and they have the RNA, and they produce all those different things. And it takes about normally 3 months for it to show up. So that's what we call our window period. So when you do HIV, say you have an HIV test today, that test pretty much from 3 months ago back, not within that whole month. So if you go and have an HIV test and I tell you your results in 2 weeks are negative, and you go have sex after that test, that don't mean you're still negative, because you start that window period all over again. So the window period basically is where your body starts from a moment of exposure all the way to you actually classify yourself into a STD. So it gives you a 3-month window period to where your body can tell if you have an STD. Now, some people, because everybody's immune system is different.
Yes, it is.
If I get an infection and Joe gets the same infection, our bodies are going to act totally different. Mine might show up faster than Joe's did, and Joe's might show up faster than Miss Steeple's did. Mine might clear out faster than both of them, or somebody else, and vice versa. We really want people to understand that's why they give it a 3-month window period, because if you're a healthy person and your body is trying to fight off this, it might take a little bit longer for that incubation period to set in.
Okay.
And just know that by day 7 to 10, anywhere between the 7 to 10 day period after you've become infected, that is the sometimes the acute, or what we call the acute infection time. But then at the same time, you are also, the body produces what's called an antigen, which is basically a way of telling that the immune system has mounted up against an invader.
Right. And to add on to what she's saying, and to what both of them said, it takes the body 3 months to produce HIV antibodies, and the antigen is the protein that leads to the production of antibodies later on. So you have to have antigens to have antibodies. And so now they have what we call 4th or 5th generation tests now. Of what Mathias was alluding to earlier. You don't necessarily have to wait 3 months, those 3-month intervals. But once again, it goes back to you, though, being specific about what you're requesting. So you have to ask for a 4th generation or 5th generation HIV test, which is a blood draw. And you have to say that you want to test for HIV antigens and possibly antigens and antibodies.
That's right. That's right.
And if you're doing that, you're getting more specific tests, and you're getting tests that will search for the HIV within your body that has happened in a shorter period of time than 3 months.
Right.
I just want to interject just one thing, Joe, is that, you know, as the three of us are sitting here talking, how important it is to speak with individuals who are knowledgeable.
Yes.
About Corona or HIV. It is key. It is key that you speak with knowledgeable individuals such as, and I'm just going to be honest, you know, I am a provider, but I learn something from Joe and Mathias every time they do a presentation. And if you have any questions, pick up the phone, email, whatever you need to do to stay educated and informed with the proper information. I just wanted to throw that out.
No, we appreciate that. Y'all talk to Miss Steaple too. Talk to Dr. Staples too.
Dr. Staples is like sometimes up to her elbows in alligators. But
hey.
Guys, y'all are there in the community. If y'all have are doing an outreach presentation when this whole COVID thing hopefully dies down, yeah, right. But if y'all are out there, go up to them, ask them questions.
We're very approachable.
We very are.
Very, and they have information on top of their experience and knowledge. Use the people at your resources. Use the people at your fingertips.
Yeah. So, oftentimes, and Mathias spoke about this earlier, oftentimes I think sometimes people may make up the different body fluids that can transmit HIV, but to hammer it home, these are 4 of the primary body fluids. There are others, but these are the 4 primary body fluids that transmit HIV. Blood, the life force, right? Blood, semen, pre-ejaculate, and ejaculate.
That's right.
If you're going to
say that again, Joe.
Pre-ejaculate and ejaculate. If you start with the condom on, finish with the condom on. Don't take the condom off for nothing.
And that includes spooning.
Right. Look, safe sex is safe sex. You can't do no shortcuts in safe sex.
That's right.
Right.
The third fluid is vaginal fluids. So men can transmit HIV to women, and women can transmit HIV to men. And breast milk is the 4th primary fluid. Now, think about this. When you're talking about the transmission, you have to have ports of entry.
That's right.
So going back to the mucosal membrane, the mucosal lining, the mouth, the eyelids. You remember when we was in school, people used to flip the eyelids inside out and they'd be pink. That's that mucosal lining. So the mouth, the eyelids, the inside of the penis, the inside of the vagina, and the inside of the anus all have the same mucosal lining.
That's right.
And especially the vagina and the anus, if you're trying to penetrate either one of those areas and it's not lubricated properly, once again, if it's not lubricated properly, that will cause friction, and friction can cause cuts, bruises, ports of entry, tears.
That's right.
And that will open up that support of entry to the bloodstream. So if person A has HIV, person B doesn't have HIV, person A penetrates person B isn't lubricated properly, there's tearing, person A pre-ejaculates and ejaculates in that area, person B, there's a high chance that person B has contracted HIV because of that port of entry. Now, I'm not saying it's 100% transmission, but it's a high percentage rate.
That's right.
And so we're getting people to understand that when it comes to HIV, not only are these the 4 primary body fluids, but you still have to have ports of entry. And without the ports of entry, you have been exposed. Now, I will say, if you feel like HIV is present, get tested. Like, we don't care. We're not gonna turn you away. Still get tested. But I do like people to understand what fluids transmit HIV and what a port of entry is, because HIV is a blood-borne pathogen that needs to be inside the body to replicate itself through the cells. It has to have that port of entry to get inside the bloodstream, to get inside of the cell.
Right.
So getting people to understand that. Now,
Joe.
Yes.
Can you go back to that one more time, that slide real quick? Okay. So can you explain to them a little bit more about really, like, hone in on what's the port of entry? Because, you know, we have these people that come in sometimes and, oh, I just put my finger in.
Okay.
And I think I got HIV.
Okay.
Or they ejaculated on top of me, but I don't have any cuts or bruises. I got HIV.
I give you an example.
On that a little bit more.
So if I have my hand now, there are no cuts on my hand. No cuts. So there's no ports of entry on my hand because there are no cuts.
Right.
A port of entry, think about a cut, a slash, a slice, a gash, anything that opens the skin up and allows for something to get inside the bloodstream. That is a port of entry. Now, also, we tell people, don't brush your teeth before giving oral sex. Don't shave before having sex. So if you're a woman, don't shave your vagina before you having sex. If you're a man, don't shave around your penis before having sex, because you can create micro tears or ports of entry that you may not even be aware of, because if you don't know the person's status, you could be having sex with somebody who's positive.
That's right.
And once you are aware and knowledgeable about ports of entry and how to do things, you should move better. But like I'm saying, if I shave before I have sex, I open myself up to be more susceptible to contract HIV, because I could have created ports of entry, even though they might be micro tears. Nonetheless, they're ports of entry, because the HIV cell it's not like it's gigantic. It's a very, very, very small cell, and it doesn't need like a great hole. So a micro tear is large enough for HIV cell to get in.
And that's including getting waxes.
Yes.
You know, Brazilian waxes, you know, that is something that's actually very common with males and females.
Right. Just real quick, I like people to know this. These are other fluids that could transmit HIV: spinal fluid, brain fluid, heart fluid, lung fluid, amniotic fluid, the fluid that the baby swims in, and synovial fluid, joint fluid.
That's
so
right.
Those are the fluids, other fluids. Now, I always tell people this: unless you come into a situation where it's like the end of a Mortal Kombat fight and somebody just explodes in front of you or something like that, then amniotic fluid will be the only fluid that will be the most common on this list.
Right.
So, these fluids, tear, we get this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Tears don't spread it. Sweat doesn't. Saliva doesn't. We covered that earlier. Nasal fluid doesn't. Urine, feces, and vomit does it. But we will say you can get all type of other stuff and hepatitis from dealing with these types of fluids. Right. And you know, we're in a world of sex. People, you know, people do what they do.
Right. We don't put nothing past nobody no more.
Do what you do. Just be safe. Just be safe. But understand that other things can be transmitted through these fluids.
That's right.
Yes. I know we're coming up toward our time limit. Is there anything else that you all think we need to add for this particular episode on HIV, or you feel like we didn't hit a home run?
I would like to say that looks can be deceiving. Do not say, oh, she has a Gucci bag. She has really nice red bottom shoes. There's no way she can be infected with HIV. No. People are still doing that. people are still judging by appearances as to whether or not this person has the infection or not.
Yeah.
Please don't do that. Don't.
Right.
You're setting yourself up for trouble.
Right.
So even looking at people in the community itself, most people with HIV look healthier than people who don't have HIV. Those are the same people that are in the gym, that are lifting weights, that have those muscular bodies. Those are the girls that got those bad bodies with those little flat stomachs and nice shapes.
That's right.
As the old folks say, the Coca-Cola bottle. And so those are the things, like, so looks can be deceiving. Also, one thing that I really want everybody to understand and know is that you need to protect yourself. Always use condoms, regardless. And like what Joe was saying earlier, other methods of transmission. So if you do shave or you do brush your teeth before having sex, those micro tears. So a lot of STDs, which we're going to get into at another in another podcast, we're going to explain to you how you can still contract the STD using a condom. Because you have to make sure, because if she has the STD and the vaginal fluids are flowing out and you just shaved and if they're leaking out all on your body, those are soaking into your pores. You don't have a condom that goes onto it. Or if you're doing the oral sex and you use the dental dams and things like that, we're going to get into all those different ways to actually protect yourself from contracting HIV as well as other STDs. But those are the things that, the small, minute things that we forget about, that are the big portions that could keep us safe from getting HIV.
Right, right.
And one last thing, Joe, is that HIV is no longer the HIV of the 1980s. If you are diagnosed with HIV, it is considered a chronic illness. The lifespan is very, very, very close to that of an individual who does not have the infection. Right. But it only happens if you're in care, if you get tested and you come into care and you stay in the care. And that means taking your medicine and coming to your appointments. So I just wanted to say.
Miss Steaple, the little lady in your phone want to get on our podcast so bad. No, you can't. No, you can't, lady.
I don't know why she's doing that. I don't know why. I'm not touching her. I'm not doing anything. I'm sorry.
She said she's trying to be famous too.
Right.
So
I just really want everybody to understand like the importance of it. And like I say, and 9 times out of 10, I say it on every podcast. Just make sure that you open and listen with an open mind. We're not here to judge people. We're not here to condemn what you do, because there's a lot of ways people have sex out here nowadays that we're going to go into later, that you're going to be surprised of what different type of acts people really do. And that's another question, is about communication. When you start getting ready to have sex with somebody, you need to communicate what you like and what you don't like.
That's
and the worst thing you want to hear is the people that come into our office and they say, well, I really didn't know, I wasn't ready for him to start peeing on me. But you didn't have those conversations before y'all have those acts. Right. And so, like Joe said earlier, your normal is not my normal. So your idea of what normal sex is isn't somebody else's idea of what normal sex is.
Right.
So the conversation piece needs to come into play a lot when people are having sex. And it's okay to communicate, because when you get in these situations, you have to communicate, because it's very important that you let the other person know what's going on. Because the last thing you want to do is be that person who gets the information on the very last end of the leg and don't know what happened.
Right, right. So with that being said, y'all remember, buckle your seatbelts up when you're watching this podcast, because we're going to take you on a ride, on an educational journey, and we want to make sure that you are informed. And remember, Mind Your Body and Soul is an educational podcast that focuses on all things health related to help our listeners learn more about various health topics and information they may not have access to. We seek to inform, empower, uplift, and mobilize our listeners to become the healthiest versions of themselves.
And remember, this is a safe space.
This is a safe space. Yes. Yeah, please like, comment, subscribe, share this, tell a friend to tell a friend. And if you have a question, drop your questions in our comment sections. You can view us on what it is, NMC Podcast, NMCpodcast.com, That's one of our main sites. We have an Anchor site that's coming soon. That's going to be anchor.com/mind your body and soul.
Nice.
On YouTube, Neighborhood Medical Center on our YouTube channel. Y'all make sure y'all connect with us. It's not going to be hard. Every Wednesday, we got this podcast. Every Wednesday, we're bringing you health topics, all types of health topics to keep us informed, to keep us safe, keep us on top of what we do. And this is another part of the outreach that we're bringing to you from Neighborhood Medical Center. So I am Joseph Ward. He's Mathias Sweet. She's Dr. Staples, Miss Steaple, Miss Alana Steaple. And this is Mind Your Body and Soul. And we'll see y'all next time. Peace out.
Bye.
Bye.